Young people make up nearly a fifth of the UK population, but are least likely to vote. Why is that? Disillusion with politics? MPs don't care about what any of us have to say? Well, today that changes. We're going to be joined by a young person, George Main Sin. He joins us. He talks all things youth parliament, and why politicians should really care about getting us young people into politics. I'm Kaylem Shepherd, and this is The Memo. George, thank you very much for joining me on The Memo. Hot-footed it from Parliament. How was your day?
It was good, yeah. Bit exciting and long, but, good.
Yeah. So tell me, you're a member of the Youth Parliament. What do you do?
So it's a representative role. So I represent Brent, which is a borough in sort of northwest London. And primarily my job is to take local issues but make them national. So our top issues are crime and safety, temporary accommodation, housing, etc. And it's our job to translate what people on the ground are telling us and kind of tell the key decision makers and engage with those stakeholders. And it's not just kind of like what we think the key issues are, by the way, because we had like a ballot that we did, I think it was March 2024, where we went around to every school and said, what are the issues that are most important to you? We don't want to talk for you. We want you to tell us.
Yeah.
And so we kind of gather results on the ground to go from there.
What were those issues?
Well, the one that came out first was crime and safety. And so we looked into that a little bit more. And from there, we developed this kind of anti-vaping strategy and looked around antisocial behaviour and worked a lot with the council. But then to give you another example, I think what came second was the topic was very sort of banal, but it was called like democracy and citizenship, something like that. And so at a national level, we campaigned for votes at 16, which we actually got achieved, right?
Yeah.
And I spoke about that in the House of Commons when I was last there in February.
Yeah. And you think vote 16 is important?
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. We support it.
Yeah, and obviously Labour do support that too. Why do you think so many young people aren't engaged in politics?
I think there's a real paradox because on one level, you kind of point to this image of like a crisis in politics. You look at the turnout rates, you look at the number of young people who don't think the system works, who don't believe kind of the democratic process itself works. And there's a whole number of reasons for that. The first is, I was born in 2008. So over my lifetime, we've kind
You're
of...
just so young.
I know.
We're only 21.
When were you born?
I was 2004.
Oh, you're not that much older.
I know, but it feels so... 2008.
I'll put it this way. Over our lifetime,
Yeah.
we've seen like the financial crisis and then the austerity that resulted from that. And then, even on something like Brexit, that's just an issue that young people just felt was beyond their reach because they couldn't control that, right?
But obviously suffering the impacts of it now.
100%.
Yeah.
And so there has been a kind of systemic breakdown in how young people feel they can get involved. But on the other hand, you look at kind of the online space and how young people are engaging there, and there is real kind of hope there. I mean, the fact that you've got this podcast that is going to reach millions of people who,
You are so kind.
who are not turning up at their council meeting maybe and banging on the table, but they're listening on their way to work, and that is kind of the way the world is changing. And I think politics kind of needs to move to reflect that shift.
But I mean, I can understand why young people aren't engaged in politics because you look at policies that are coming out very against young people, and we have politicians that don't seem to care about young people. So in that sense, a young person saying, do you know what, I don't care about politics, I'm just going to go and watch football with my mates. I understand that. But you say, don't play football with your mates. Let's talk about the issues.
Well, you can do both.
Oh, of course you can, but in the kind of regard of...
Well, I mean, two things. First of all, straight to your point, you're right. Politicians don't take decisions in the interest of young people. So I'll give you an example. I mean, we spend about £16 billion a year as a country on like something called the triple lock, which is to ensure that we're going to raise pensions by, it's like interest, earnings or inflation, something like that, whichever's highest. And that costs us £16 billion to make sure that older people are paying more, are getting a higher pension. At the same time, we spend about sort of £1 billion in total on the youth sector as a whole. I mean, that is just a huge disparity, right? And that is not by chance. It's because older people vote more. So if you're a politician, it's not that you're kind of inherently against young people, but if you've got a focus group, for example, of who's going to vote for me, and it's dominated by people sort of over 65, and they say, we want a higher pension. And it's nothing against sort of the older, it's not about the sort of intergenerational sort of conflict. It's just making sure that young people have a seat at the table. So in that sense, maybe, if you're going to play football, maybe put it aside for 1 week. But,
how did you get a seat on the table?
Well, I guess I'm kind of an anomaly, if you think.
Go on, tell us a story. Bear all.
So I was elected MYP in 2024.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And it all kind of starts local, right? So I went to Brent Youth Parliament, which is kind of my local youth council.
Alice, fantastic.
Yeah.
Youth worker there.
But on a serious point, by the way, it's the local youth workers who are the kind of the starting point for people to find out about it in the first place. So I guarantee you, like 95% of people who are listening to this now won't know that they have a local youth council, let alone know how to get involved with that local youth council. But that is the way, that is kind of my journey. And by the way, every single politician you meet who is kind of young, for example, who is pro-young people and was involved in youth politics themselves would have used a route very similar to that. So I know Keir Mather, I think he's a Labour MP. He's like 25.
Youngest
young baby of the house.
Yeah, baby of the house.
And
we asked him to come on the podcast.
Oh, what did he say?
He said he was too busy.
Oh, well, that's not a good look,
he
is
declined.
You should tell him though, but he was he was a youth MP too.
Yeah. You sound like a politician. Is that what you want to do?
Well,
I don't know if you can say.
No, I can say I want to be a politician.
Yeah.
I've just come back from the House of Commons, so maybe that's why I'm kind of embodying.
This is not your normal attire.
Well, no, this is not what I normally wear. And actually, maybe it's not good because I think if I was coming on like a normal day, I'd wear something normal to look like a normal young person. I'd wear a pink jumper. But no, I definitely want to go into politics when I'm older. But I also know that a lot of the young people who I meet now, who are involved in politics now, don't want to go into politics when they're older too, because they just care about the issues in the here and now, which absolutely must come first.
And obviously, politics is very important, but on the local level, we don't hear much about local politics. Do you think Parliament and politicians are doing something wrong when it comes to that kind of local political issues?
Yeah, two things. First of all, local politics is the most important in terms of the actual impact, purchase it has on young people's lives. But it's also the most boring if you think about it, because the kind of systems and the kind of routines that underpin how local government works, they're so old. Like no one can. I don't understand them. Like I didn't know where Brent Council like headquarters was until I went to BYP, Brent Youth Parliament. Whereas I know where our national parliament is. Yeah. I can find it on a map. It's just where Big Ben is. So local government, by the way, controls huge sway over huge swaths of our lives, right? Way more than you think. If you cite the issues most important to young people, crime, schools, green space, etc., they're all controlled by local government. So you ask, what's gone wrong? Well, what's gone wrong, frankly, is that local government is not in the 21st century. So, I mean, even having, using techniques like this podcast would go a huge way, I think.
We had Carl Cashman on the podcast a few weeks ago, and he basically emphasised the importance of local councils. And his way of doing it is kind of being fun and young on social media. Our politicians need to do that. There is one politician who is doing that. Do you know his name?
He's talking about Zoran Mamdani.
Well, I got him, but also I was thinking Nigel Farage.
Oh, okay, in our own country.
In our country?
Yeah.
Do you think our politicians need to get on social media a bit more?
Look, I think if you had Keir Starmer or like an older politician suddenly going on social media doing all this stuff, people would find it a bit cringe. That's what I think. But if you have a younger politician, that's why I said Zoran Mamdani, by the way. If you have a younger politician who understands it and can use it, then yes, it is going to cut through a lot more.
Zach Polanski,
for example. We were at an event the other day, and they had Zach Polanski, who was speaking, and they had Michael Heseltine, who was speaking, who was the under Thatcher.
Big difference.
Exactly. But I tell you what, so I was firstly, I was like, oh my God, it's Michael Hesstein, this paragon of history. So I was in, but no one cared that he was there.
Yeah.
But when Zach Polanski came out, people piled into the rooms. I mean, you could feel it in the atmosphere. It was very tangible. And that's because everyone knows him, right?
Yeah.
And everyone, whether you agree with everything he said, everyone knows what he stands for because they all have, they go onto their phone in the morning and he's there. So that to me was a huge wake up call to how you use social media. Yeah.
What do you say to adults that say youth parliament's a bit of a joke, it's a waste of money and time?
Well, first of all, I mean, I've never actually heard an adult say that. The people I've heard say that, like Twitter bots and like trolls.
You call me a Twitter bot, Jay?
Yeah, well, I hope you're not saying that. Look, I think what I was just telling you about how politicians skew their policies towards older voters. Things like youth parliament mean that that's going to have to change. I mean, I know there is genuine opposition, for example, to votes at 16, but that is primarily driven from arguments like young people aren't educated enough, young people aren't literate enough politically. And so why would getting rid of something like youth parliament, surely that would only make the problem worse because we are proving that actually we can make young people literate. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was in the newsroom with my friends and we were talking about Vote 16. And my kind of thoughts on it were that I like the idea of young people staying young until they actually have to join the real world. So what do you say to, do you think we need to keep our young people innocent and young, and when they get to 18, they should tackle the real world? What happened to being innocent and young?
Think about it like this, right? I mean, if you're saying you should, preserve kids, you should kind of shelter them. And then you're saying sort of 18 is this sort of harsh cutoff point in which you throw them out into the cold. I mean, I don't think that's very healthy either. But equally, I mean, votes at 16 is not some kind of like sort of desensitizing reform that's going to like make young people completely, desensitized to the world. It's going to empower. I think it's going to empower them, if anything. And you say, you should keep young people innocent. The fact is, young people today are not kind of
innocent.
They're not innocent. They don't kind of want to do everything that makes them feel warm and cuddly. They want their issues to be kind of solved, right?
Yeah.
So I think you've got to tap into the kind of mood right now. And I think the mood is actually the opposite of, what you're saying.
Young and innocent.
Yeah.
We want change. We want change now.
Yeah, exactly.
I had Daisy Blakemore Creedon, formerly Labour councillor, now independent. We've had Harrison Omanvati, former Conservative councillor, now Reform councillor. They are very young to be councillors. Do you think there should be an age limit to entering those kind of jobs? I mean, isn't someone aged 18, 19 running Warwickshire Council?
George Finch, 19, running Warwickshire.
Or what's your thought? I mean, is that too young?
Look, I'm not in Warwickshire, so I'm not going to say.
But you did say, voting's important.
I did. I think the principle that if you can vote, then you should be able to engage. You should be able to stand. I think that principle stands.
Hey everybody, I'm Kaylem Shepherd. Thank you very much for watching the podcast. Please just take a second to like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and make sure it's available on your podcast app. That can be Spotify, it can be Apple. The Memo with me, Kaylem Shepherd, wherever you get your podcast. Once again, thank you for watching.
I don't think that I have a problem with an 18-year-old being a councillor. If you're the leader of a council, obviously that's going to inevitably raise questions about, qualifications, etc. But I think in general, the general criticism, or what experience do you have? You have the experience of being a young person. So, for example, we only have, I think, 2 MPs in the House of Commons who were born in the 21st century, and they constantly ask, "What experience do you have?" But if the government, if you're a minister and you're passing a bill about education, for example, your only knowledge of education through your own lived experience is about the system that was in the 20th century. So you don't know what it was like to do A-levels through COVID, for example. So inherently experience is, through being a young person, then your experience is inherently more contemporary. And so you don't need to have had a long career in order to engage.
Tell me, politics it just feels so divisive at the moment, with people, biting each other's head off. How do we lower the temperature in the room?
Well, I think if you did this podcast, say 15 years ago, I think you'd still ask me, young people are fed up of kind of the point scoring, the finger pointing, the name calling, etc. What has exacerbated that is social media, because not only now can we go onto our phones and see politicians screaming at each other in the House of Commons, you can also scream at other people directly yourself over social media, and especially with events around the world, for example, what's happening in Gaza, events in Ukraine and Sudan, for example, they're all about identity too. So it kind of creates this sort of toxic pot, if you like, in which people kind of fan flames and throw insults at each other over social media. And I think if you say, well, how can we lower the temperature? First of all, just don't use social media that way.
Yeah.
Like people.
That's not realistic, though, is it?
People think, oh, you're going to have to change social media, but it's incredibly hard to change. And you can have more responsibility on the companies, 100%. But you also have some individual agency over how you're using social media.
How do you use social media?
I try and use it in the healthiest way. I mean, I don't have TikTok, for example.
Oh,
I know.
You're missing out.
But
we're gonna have to do a TikTok before you leave.
Are we gonna?
Your first TikTok. Have you done TikTok before?
I've not.
We're gonna have to do his first TikTok. You're gonna have to.
I love how I just told you about like bringing politics in the 21st century. I've never done it. But
I saw your Instagram though.
Oh, did you?
Very
Yeah, I have
professional.
Instagram. So exactly, that's how I try and use it in a way that is going to. And people reach out, by the way, using social media. But for example, if I get like media opportunities, there'll be like, oh, and downside you have to consider is there'll be like people who are going to say like hate comments, and it's like that's fine because I'm not going to read them. As long as you have that mindset, I think social media can be a more gentle place. But a lot of people don't have that mindset. I'm surprised, actually.
Yeah, we've got the lovely Alice sitting here in the studio. Youth clubs are closing down. We need to bring them back. What can we do?
Money. There's other factors, but it's hard. It's just a matter of.
Do you think youth would actually go to the youth clubs if they were open?
Yeah, I do, and I'll tell you why. Because if you look at what has happened in line with austerity, but also in line with kind of this new social media climate we're living in, young people are far less connected with this idea of a local community and far more connected with, it goes back to what we were saying, this idea of a global community. So they're always using their phones to connect with people sort of around, I wouldn't say around the world, but just online essentially, and spending far less time doing stuff in their local community. And then we look at young people being lonelier than ever, young people being more unhappy than ever in surveys, and I think that is the reason. And actually, I know it sounds a little bit pedantic, but the fact that we have cut youth clubs so much, I think, is one of the biggest reasons for that.
The reason you see more crime on the streets, youth?
I think so.
They have nowhere to go after school.
Yeah, it's not just that youth clubs are for kids who we would kind of stereotypically deem as sort of people likely to go into crime, by the way. But exactly, you're going to mix kids from different social backgrounds, right? And the people who run those youth clubs too provide a different kind of role model than I think a normal teacher does.
And what role model is Alice to you?
A very big role model.
Go on.
I think that, well, look, Alice has opened a lot of doors for me, so I'm very grateful for that. But I think in Brent and looking at, my experience of living in Brent, especially post-COVID, would have been a lot tougher had I not met Alice, had I not done Brent Youth Parliament. So, yeah.
You seem like a very nice guy, George.
Thank you.
Thank you.
too.
Oh, you're so kind. Thank you so much for coming on the pod. Just before you go, if someone wanted to get into politics, someone 16 sitting in their bedroom, what would your first bit of advice be?
Someone my age, go find your youth council.
What if they don't have one?
Go set up one.
Set up one.
Yeah, and if you can't, go tell your MP, and if they don't reply, keep going until they do.
George, thank you so much for coming on the Memo.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Hey everybody, I'm Kaylem Shepherd. Thank you very much for watching the podcast. Please just take a second to like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and make sure it's available on your podcast app. That can be Spotify, it can be Apple. The Memo with me, Kaylem Shepherd, wherever you get your podcast. Once again, thank you for watching.